Hello and welcome to ReRoll, Sprint Edition. What is ReRoll, I hear you ask? Well, for those of you who don't remember the league before it became GRUMBBL, ReRoll was a weekly match of the day style show where I'd cover all of the week's games in the old league, doing an arguably funny summary commentary, covering the game's highlights in detail and talking about how the results affected the league table. It was a great show and I loved doing it. So what's with all the sprint nonsense then? Well, with GRUMBBL Season 1 we've expanded to 20 teams over 2 divisions, and with myself still being a one-man band working on ReRoll, it's just unfeasible for me to cover every game each week. Therefore, Sprint Edition is a more streamlined version of ReRoll, where I'll summarise the week's fixtures for each division, I'll highlight the more memorable moments of some games over a few sentences, and then give a brief review of the league standings. So very similar, just much shorter and with a lot less editing. Now that doesn't mean the ReRoll you know and love is gone, in fact far from it, it's just on hiatus until further notice. I may put together some full episodes at some point or for a special occasion, but it's very much dependent on my schedule at the time, so there are no promises. What you should check out is the What a Roll podcast, hosted by J-Baz and Marvin Divot. They casually review all of the week's games that they've seen, they cover the team's rosters, and they make predictions about the weeks to come. So if you're looking for something a little more in-depth, that's the place to go. If you want a quick and easy place to get updated about the week's results and are just too lazy to check the website, well then ReRoll is the place for you. This inaugural episode is going to be a special one though, as I'm going to cover both the first and second weeks of the league. Totally because I thought it'd be much more interesting that way and not because I'm behind schedule, honest. Now, without further ado, let's review the games of weeks 1 and 2. Oh, and in case it wasn't blindingly obvious at this point, there are spoilers ahead. All of the games VODs are available on Twitch and YouTube, so if you want to watch any games prior to this show, do it now. There are no excuses, you have been warned. Looking at Division 1, we can see it's quite a bashy league, and it also contains 3 of the 4 semi-finalists from last season, so it's not going to be an easy one either. Episode 1 of the What a Roll podcast does go through all the teams individually in detail for both divisions, so if you want to know more about any of the teams specifically, check out that episode. Now with it being the start of the season, there's not really too much drama yet, so I'm going to jump straight into the scores. The Necromantic might not be so happy about that 1-0 win over the Vampires, as it did cost them a white to do it, which could seriously hurt them in their upcoming game against the Dark Elves. The 1-1 draw between the Orcs and Dwarves was actually much more entertaining than the slow, cagey slugfest that you might come to expect from this kind of face-off. The Dwarves stole the ball in the Orcs' first drive to score, and the Orcs returned in kind but with much more style, as when they stole the ball in the second half, they launched it over the entire scrum to a blitzer who ran off to equalise in the closing turns of the game. The game to watch this week though is the Sons of Saurus versus the Whiskey Kings, where the Lizardmen showed the Dark Elves how to elf. Yes, you heard that correctly. They showed the Whiskey Kings how to properly intercept and how to properly pass, and secured a solid 3-1 win that they'll be more than happy with. Now looking at the league table, it's pretty much what you'd expect. The 3 teams that won are at the top, the 3 teams that lost are at the bottom, and the 4 teams that drew are in the middle. I am shocked. What might be interesting to keep an eye on though is the casualties. With the Chaos Dwarves securing 2 injuries and a kill, they have taken the early lead on that front. Diving into Week 2's matchups, we've got a case of top versus bottom in the Sons of Lustria versus the Feywood Way Watchers, as well as the Whiskey Kings looking to redeem themselves in a 3rd versus 9th game, whilst the Dwarves have another potentially grindy game ahead of them. And looking at the results confirm that yes, the Dwarves did grind out a 1-1 draw, putting both themselves and the Nurgle on 2 points apiece. The Sons of Lustria decided once again to give a lesson in Elf by beating the other Elf team in the league 3-1, securing a nice amount of touchdowns and level ups out of their first 2 games. The Orcs, who looked to do some good bashing of Hobgoblins this week, got firmly put in their place when the Chaos Dwarves destroyed their armour, injuring 2 and securing yet another kill on a poor Goblin this time. That, combined with their whopping 3-0 scoreline, puts them just above the impressive Lizards thanks to their goal difference. The Whiskey Kings did end up redeeming themselves by securing a 2-1 victory over the Necromantic, putting the Elves level with them at 3 points apiece. Week 2 was a week of high scores for Division 1, and with the top 2 teams securing a comfortable goal difference lead over the other teams, though the Chaos Dwarves are storming ahead on casualties so far, and still the ones to watch. Moving over to Division 2 now, we have a bit more of a mix of teams. The Charon Soul Surfers are coached by last year's Cup winner, but all eyes are on Marvellous Marv's Calidor Comets to pull out some marvellous plays. The match to watch in Week 1 was the Super Freakonomics versus the Washington Trumps. not because of the team matchup, but because it's brother versus brother, and there's a debate as if there would be more punching on the sidelines from the coaches than actually on the pitch. The game did end in a 1-1 draw, but my was it a game. With the deadly bear that refused to bonehead, fouls galore from the Kislev, resulting in the Dark Elves only having a couple of players on the pitch by the end of it, yet still forcing the Kislev to do a dramatic leap on turn 16 to equalise the game. That game was casted, and boy was it a doozy, and definitely one to watch. In other news, the Calador Comets soared sky high by beating the Lizards of Basilar's Bruisers 4-0. Yes, that's not a typo. Not only showing the power of High Elves, but levelling up both blitzers to have Blodge Game 1 puts them as a very scary team for this division. The Charon Soul Surfers got a lucky 2-1 win over Khorne's Berserker, as the ball-carrying Minotaur decided to throw a tantrum turn 16 to prevent the equalising touchdown. This almost makes up for the fact that a Flesh Golem died. Almost. And finally, in the Skaven off, Blaze Shaken and his Vermin Tiders proved they had the better gutter runners in a result that will have the expired Cheetos cheesed off. I don't apologise for that. And in a mirror of Division 1 Week 1, there are 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, and 4 in the middle, but with probably expectedly many more casualties across the board. Sliding into Week 2 with a real mix of games, the Comets aimed to further increase their spectacular lead, whilst Basilar's Bruisers wanted to redeem themselves after last week's defeat. Unfortunately for them, they were playing the other elf team under the experienced command of Aramis, and it did not go as planned. A 3-0 defeat and the death of a skink has made this not the most ideal start to a season. The Comets followed up with another good win, though not quite as spectacular as the first, but still nothing to be disappointed in. The Kislev were not at all hindered by the traditional roadblock game that is Nurgle, though this was largely down to a beast that refused to wake up and do anything all game. The Norse proved they had the better wolves, and really didn't lay down the hurt onto the Necromantic team, and whilst there were deaths on both sides, the Soul Surfers struggled to really get the man advantage, and the Norse broke through, securing a solid 2-0 win. With both the brothers winning their games 3-0, they've both jumped up significantly to 2nd and 3rd, and with suspiciously identical stats. A real mix of wins, draws and losses has put 2nd to 5th in very close contention, showing that at this moment, every touchdown counts. And that's it for this week's coverage, though I'd like to just take a moment to honour all of those we've lost this week. Well, it has certainly been a brutal first 2 weeks, with a death every other game. And whilst no one too significant has died yet, as so few players have levelled up, we hope to maintain this brutality over the coming weeks, so hopefully we'll see some star players get what they've got coming to them. Anyways, that wraps us up for this inaugural episode. If you want to watch any of these games, they're available both on this YouTube channel and on our Twitch, and you can find all of the links below. Also, if you haven't already, check out the What a Roll podcast and GFI if you want to catch up on the top moments from the week. I've been Seven Tails, thank you for watching, and may Nuffle bless you all.
Thanks for watching. Sorry for the German. Go to school and learn languages comme français ou espagnol.
El Catapulto. Das Katapult.
I think Seven Tails fell asleep.